Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a little girl, the prettiest child anyone had ever seen. Her mother loved her dearly, and her grandmother loved her even more. One day her grandmother made her a bright red hood, which suited her so well that everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother made some custards and said, "My dear, your grandmother is not feeling well. Take her a custard and this little pot of butter." Little Red Riding Hood set off right away. Her grandmother lived in another village, and to get there she had to walk through a forest. As she walked, she met a big, sly wolf. The wolf wanted to eat her, but did not dare because there were woodcutters nearby. Instead, he asked, "Where are you going, little girl? I'm going to visit my grandmother," she said, innocently. "I'm bringing her a custard and a little pot of butter from my mother." "Does she live far from here?" asked the wolf. "Oh yes," she replied. "Her house is just beyond that mill, the first one in the village." The wolf grinned. "I see. Well, I'll go visit her too. I'll take this path and you take that one. Let's see who gets there first." The wolf ran off quickly, taking the shortest route, while Little Red Riding Hood took her time, picking flowers and chasing butterflies. The wolf soon arrived at the grandmother's house. He knocked on the door. "Who is it?" asked the grandmother. "It's your granddaughter, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf said in a soft voice, pretending to be the girl. "I brought you a custard and a little pot of butter from Mother." The grandmother, who was sick in bed, said, "Pull the string and the latch will open." The wolf pulled the string and the door opened. Without wasting a moment, he leaped onto the bed and swallowed the poor old woman in one gulp. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. Then he put on her clothes, got into bed and waited for Little Red Riding Hood. A while later, the little girl arrived and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" asked the wolf, trying to sound like the grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood hesitated because the voice sounded different, but she thought her grandmother might have a cold. "It's me, grandmother! I brought you a custard and a little pot of butter from Mother." The wolf softened his voice. "Pull the string and the latch will open." She did as she was told and stepped inside. The wolf, still hiding under the blankets, said, "Put the food on the table and come lie down with me." Little Red Riding Hood undressed and got into bed. She was surprised to see how different her grandmother looked. "Grandmother, what big arms you have! All the better to hug you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big legs you have! All the better to run with, my child." "Grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my child." "Grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my child." "Grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with." And with that, the wicked wolf pounced on Little Red Riding Hood and swallowed her whole. Luckily, a huntsman passing by the house heard strange noises from inside. He thought it was odd for the old woman to be making such sounds, so he peeked through the window. Seeing the large wolf lying in bed with a round belly, he immediately understood what had happened. Without hesitation, the huntsman burst into the house and took out his knife. He carefully slit the wolf's belly open. To his surprise, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother came out unharmed. They were both shaken but safe. Little Red Riding Hood quickly fetched some large stones, and they placed them inside the wolf's belly before the huntsman sewed it back up. When the wolf woke up, he tried to run away, but the heavy stones made him collapse, and he never got up again. The grandmother hugged her granddaughter tightly, relieved to be safe. Little Red Riding Hood promised never to wander off the path again or talk to strangers. She learned an important lesson that day. From then on, she was always careful, and the villagers never had to worry about the big bad wolf again. Moral of the story: always listen to your elders and never talk to strangers. She learned an important lesson that day. From then on, she was always careful, and the villagers never had to worry about the big bad wolf again. Moral of the story: always listen to your elders and never talk to strangers.